Hi, my name is Chris Kendle and I want to welcome you to our cooking program today. We're going to be making a panzanella, and so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the ingredients that we need for this dish. We're going to start with a small French loaf, and so this is the French loaf that I have selected. If you have a difficult time finding a small loaf like this, you can get a regular sized loaf and just use less of it, but it is best if it's an unsliced loaf that you can slice on your own so that you can get those 1-inch cubes that we need for the recipe. We're also going to be using a clove of garlic. We're going to use tomatoes. Now I have one nice large ripe tomato, but I like to have a kind of some mixtures of colors and textures in this, and so I wasn't able to get specifically heirloom tomatoes, but I was able to find these, and I thought they would add some really beautiful color to our dish today. Nutrients come in colors, and so we want to have lots of different nutrients available and present in our dish. Next, we're going to have an English cucumber, a red onion, we have some olive oil, red wine vinegar, some capers. Now I know capers may not be something that you use in your kitchen a whole lot, and so if you're like, oh gosh, I don't have capers, I'm not going to be able to make this, it's okay. You can make it without the capers if you want, but it does add a nice touch to the dish if you do have those capers available. We're also going to have some salt. I have some fresh basil here. This is from the garden. Love that herb garden in the summer. We have some oregano leaves here, so again, fresh oregano. Now if you don't have fresh herbs available, you can just use dried herbs. You would use about a third to half the amount of dried herbs as what's called for of the fresh herbs. We also have some fresh grated Parmesan here, and then we're going to use pepper to taste. Before we get started cooking, we're going to head over to the sink and make sure that we wash our hands. So I'd like for everyone who's watching to go ahead and take a moment to wash your hands as well, and we'll be right back. Our first step in preparing this recipe is that we're going to turn on the oven. We're going to get that preheated to 375 degrees. And then I'm going to start off with my French loaf here. I'm going to cut that, and I'm not going to show you cutting the entire loaf here, but I just wanted to show you a little bit. So I'm going to cut it into about 1-inch thick sections, and then turn that off and go ahead and cut that yet again, so that I have about 1-inch cubes here. I'm going to put those onto my cookie sheet. So here we have our bread cubes all chopped up, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this into my preheated oven. Again, preheated that to 375, and I'm going to put that in there for about 5 minutes just to get these a little bit toasty. Now, if I was doing this as a traditional panzanella, which is a Tuscan dish, and it uses stale bread and tomatoes, onions, and we're adding cucumbers. Some recipes have cucumbers, some recipes don't. But if I was actually doing this in a traditional sense, I wouldn't have to toast my bread because it would be stale bread. And so this was a way for people to use up stale bread and yet have a really tasty, delicious dish there in the summertime, nice and fresh. But since we did start with fresh bread, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the oven for, again, about 5 minutes. So while that bread is toasting in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and start getting my other produce cut. It's a nice thing about this recipe is it gives you a little bit of pacing to be able to do that. So I'm going to cut the top off that tomato there, and then I'm just going to have a large chopped dice. Turn that a quarter. Oops, get that lined up. And just need to dice that tomato up a little bit. Pick some of these pieces that are a little bigger chopped and cut those up a little bit too. Get that into my bowl here. Now, if I was cooking for a group, it'd be really important to make sure that I would have my gloves on. But since I'm cooking for here at home and you're cooking in your homes, we can just use clean, bare hands. But do remember, if you're ever cooking for a group, You want to make sure you put some gloves on and practice good food safety with that. So we don't want to have bare hand contact with ready-to-eat foods that we're serving to others. So I'm going to, again, get that into the bowl. And then I'm going to cut up my little tomatoes here. Whoops. So I'm going to grab a few of those out. I'm just going to slice these in half. And again, just because it adds some nice interest to our dish. It's really great if you can find all different colors of heirloom tomatoes that you can add in here. So you can see we have a nice color arrangement going on in there. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut my cucumber. Now, I do not peel my cucumbers before cutting them. It adds some nice nutrients. There's fiber in that peel, but that's a personal opinion. If you would like to peel that, do go ahead and do so. So just to show you, I'm going to actually put those into crescents, into halves. I think it actually makes it a little bit nicer to go ahead and break it down into quarters. So that's what I'm going to do. It's just a little more manageable in terms of the size of slice there. So we've grabbed the toasted bread cubes out of the oven. I'm going to let those sit back here until we're ready for them. Last thing to cut here is our onion. I'm going to put on my onion goggles and ready to go here. And I'm going to, now this is a really big red onion, and I'm not going to need all of this. So I'm going to, well, I'm not even going to need the half of it that it calls for, or else we're really going to have a lot of onion in there. So I'm going to get my onion ready to cut here. Just again, going to make some slices, and then I'm going to cut those into smaller pieces for putting into the panzanella. So now we're ready to go ahead and add our garlic into our mixture here. So I'm going to just use my garlic press. Now I know it said just to cut it. That is a preference. If you would like to cut it, you can cut it. I'm going to go ahead and actually just use my garlic press for that. And then I'm going to put in my olive oil. Now the olive oil, it says it needs 6 tablespoons. There's 2 tablespoons and 1/8 of a cup. So not to be confusing, but I'm just going to do this 3 times. My 6 tablespoons of oil. Now olive oil is a monounsaturated oil, and it's been found to be a little bit heart healthier than some of our other kinds of oils. Olive oil made from pressed olives, and it has a nice natural flavoring to it that's really great, particularly with our Italian dishes. Oops. And then I'm also going to put in tablespoons of our red wine vinegar. Go. And I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of my capers. I have those all measured out here. I'm going to have you move in close so people can get a look at what these capers are. Some folks may not have seen capers before. So capers are the fruit of the caper bush. It's also called the Flinders rose bush. So it's well known for its bushy flowers that are used in foods, as well as the fruit, which is used in foods. And these are often pickled or stored under oil. And so we have that. Next, we're going to put in a little bit of salt. Now, the salt actually is going to cause an osmotic change here in this recipe, so that it's going to cause the liquids that are in the cucumbers particularly to be pulled out, and then that's going to make us a nice saucy kind of liquid to put with the bread, and then that bread will soak that up and make for a delicious combination here. I'm going to give this a good stir. Here we go. And next, I'm going to go ahead and add in my bread cubes. I'm just going to pick those up and transfer them here. Maybe I should have select a larger bowl. I'm going to stir that a little bit to get those bread cubes stirred in. And add some more bread cubes. And here we go. So that's about a perfect size bowl, actually. So I'm going to just work those down in there. Oh, got some frisky bread cubes. Work those down in, get that well mixed. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my herbs. And so I have my oregano here. I'm going to sprinkle that on. And with the herbs, again, if you don't want to have as much herb on there, that's just fine. I'm going to do some quick cutting here with my herb snips of my basil. Some nice fresh basil put on here. And if you don't have herb snips, not a problem. You can just rough cut this basil. Okay, there we go. I'm going to let this sit for about 10 minutes, and at the end I'm going to sprinkle that Parmesan on the top. So here we are back over with our panzanella, and I do have to tell you that there's a little less panzanella from the last time that you saw this dish, because my family has been going by and picking out pieces of panzanella. They cannot wait to enjoy this dish. I'm going to sprinkle on our Parmesan cheese, and we're going to stir that in just a little bit. And again, you can add a little bit of pepper to taste. So I'm going to sprinkle on a smidgy bit of pepper, not a whole lot. And here we are, all done. I hope you enjoy.